I think we are live. Let me double check on my iPad. Let's hit play. It's loading. Yes, we are live.
Yay.
I can see Jen. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Albi. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Rob. I know Rob is there. He's always there. He's one of our ZK brains, part of our team. I just clicked something. I'll share those later. But yeah, I'm so glad that we are running this series for the first time. Hi, Morteza. Sorry if we are not pronouncing your name good. Hello, GM Porter. Welcome. Today is we are running for the first time the series built on Buidl on ZKsync Era together with Sarah today. And we are so excited because Sarah just finished this amazing tutorial, and I was going through the tutorial for like 1,000 times, and we thought, why don't we do like a live stream of just doing the same thing that we did for the past few days, because it was such an interesting experience and we learned a lot at the same time. And here we are. So the series will be a weekly event that we will run part of our team, and we will have different guests coming on Fridays to showcase different use cases or how to build things on ZKsync. And yeah, we will learn all together. It's a very like smooth, demure, mindful pair programming session where I will try to just bring people that I really enjoy and learn from them together with all of you here. So without further ado, let's invite Sarah to give an introduction as well, and then we will get started.
Thanks so much. Yeah, my name's Sarah Schwartz. I joined Matter Labs this year. So it's like maybe a couple months ago, pretty recently. And I'm super excited to be able to share this with you guys. This is my first like full tutorial that I've made since I've joined. And like you're saying, I chose to make this tutorial, which is this one right here, building a custom ZK chain, which, by the way, this website we're looking at right here is code.zksync.io. And like kind of like sun in my eyes here. And so why I chose this is we have this sort of new thing we just launched called the Elastic Chain. And it seems super interesting to me. So I was just like, okay, I've been hearing a bit about it. Like, I want to sort of dive into it and actually like get some hands-on experience, try it out, see what is possible with it today, and like how I can get started playing around with it today. So yeah, that's what I did. Super excited to share it with you guys. It was definitely like a learning process, but I feel like I sort of honed everything in to like easily make sense now, so you can actually pick it up like in 30 minutes or something like that.
Yes, and you actually did an amazing thing because we have a lot of toolings on ZKsync Era, right? So the Elastic Chain is like the new architecture that was introduced with the blog on ZKsync 3.0, which you can find on Mirror, and I will share it with everyone now again. Well, not again because I didn't share it earlier, but you will learn more on what are the fundamentals of this new architecture, what are the benefits for developers or even teams who are building one step further than their dApp on ZKsync Era. And this is just a showcase maybe to explain what would it take for you as a developer to go through the steps and run a ZK chain locally, which is a little different from what you're used to with the ZKsync CLI only to build on ZKsync Era. But yes, Sarah went through all of this, put together things from different engineering teams, which is amazing because we have such a smart group of people who are working consistently to make the tech so good. So we have so many things to share at the same time. But yes, exciting that we will be running those interesting commands that I love, especially the Inception one. It's like this name that gets me excited every time I see it, every time I run it. But yes, I think we are good to go. And while you start setting up your local setup, I'll go find that 3.0 ZKsync blog and I will share it on the comments below.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's so true that the team has really sort of building in semi-stealth mode where like we have this really cool CLI to like make a new like local chains and customize them. But we haven't really shared too much about it. It's pretty new. So it's exciting to finally share it. Yeah, and if you want to go through this with us, the website is code.zksync.io. And yeah, should we get started?
Yes, I think we are ready. I am also ready. My terminal is open, so yeah, we'll be following up.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. So this is a tutorial right here. It's just one in the middle, building a custom ZK chain. And there's like 2 sections to this tutorial. So we're going to go through this first one, and basically this first section, or let's go through like what is in the whole tutorial. So across both sections, what we're going to do is we're going to create and locally run an Elastic chain ecosystem. And let me see if I can make this a bit bigger. All right. Create and locally run an Elastic chain ecosystem. We'll talk a bit more about what that is, how to create a chain within that ecosystem and deploy a contract to it, and then how to set up a ZK chain that has a custom base token. And we'll get into that more later, what that means, but basically it means like you can use a custom ERC20 token as your token for like ETH on your own chain. So cool. And then we're also going to be talking a lot about the ZK Inception CLI. So the CLI is basically like your best friend in this whole process. Like it just sort of does everything for you. And it makes this whole setup, which otherwise would be super complicated. Like there's so many different pieces to these kinds of things, or like, yeah, to making the whole ecosystem and your own chain. And the CLI really like is such a nice wrapper around all of that to like easily spin up something new. So yeah, the Inception CLI will set up the new ecosystem. It will create a new chain for you. The CLI doesn't deploy a smart contract, but we already have tooling we have for that like you probably used for Era maybe. And then we're going to create a second chain that uses the custom base token. So prerequisites. This is probably one of the most difficult parts, and really it's just because there's quite a few dependencies. So we'll get to that in a sec, but basically there's, some standard system requirements of like you have a machine that can actually like run Docker and like run like a couple different nodes and have, not like a meltdown instantly. I would say if you should probably be familiar with deploying smart contracts on ZKsync Era. We'll still have like the steps for that, but if you want like the super detailed version of like everything there is to know about deploying to Era, we have like this quick start tutorial in our normal docs page that I recommend. And then also, I'm not going to go through all of the architecture of the Elastic chain or the vision for that or ZK chains, but we have this ZK stack section in our docs that has like all these really detailed, in-depth docs about like what is the Elastic chain vision, what are ZK chains, how does all that work, and that mirror article you mentioned also is like a really great resource for understanding like what is the vision for the Elastic chain. So I'll just like briefly touch on what that is, but if you want to learn more, ZK stack docs and the mirror blog for sure. And yeah, so
I'm going to share all of those links via comments. Okay. So whatever you're saying, I'm gonna,
Thank you. Yeah. And there's a link to it in the prerequisites too for this like ZK chains doc here. It like has this really in-depth, awesome description about all of that. So I'm not going to reiterate all of that. It's there for you to read, but I'm just really going to go through like, okay, actually using the CLI and everything. And then there's this setup guide. It's actually like a markdown file on GitHub, but it has sort of like detailed steps of like all the dependencies you need. So you need Rust, you need NVM, install like Node version 20. You need Docker, Postgres, some other dependencies. And there's like, you also need Foundry, Cargo, which comes with Rust. So there's quite a few dependencies here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I would say if you're going through this tutorial and you instantly have issues, I would say like double check this, make sure you have like the latest versions of things or the specific version mentioned. So yeah, quite a few things to install if you're running on like a blank machine, but you might already have a lot of those things ready if you're, long-time developer. And then quick note, like if you previously have Foundry ZKsync installed, it might not work with this. You might need to install like the regular version of Foundry. So yeah. How was that setup process for you, like the prerequisites, Albi?
Yeah, I'm trying to put the links on the
okay, no worries.
comments. Yeah. But for me, the prerequisites, since I've had a lot of like packages installed already with the other setups that I've done, it was easier. But for some reason, the ZK inception like was acting weird for me, especially because I had Rust installed in different ways. Like I had Rust with Cargo and I had Rust with Homebrew, which like messed up everything when it comes to for what is Rust being used as specific setups. So that took me some time to figure it out until I fixed it. And then, Daniel, who is the engineer who's working on the ZK inception and the tooling, he was very patient to kind of guide me on actually finding out what's happening. Because then later, also with the ZKsync CLI, which are two different things. It's like the ZK inception CLI is only for the ZK stack and building your ZK chains. And then we use the ZKsync CLI, the main one who helps you to navigate things around. Then the ZKsync CLI was not working for me, which was like, okay, this is because right after I fixed the ZKsync inception to make it work locally, then I was struggling with the main ZKsync CLI. And after like switching between node versions, a couple here and there, and trying, many projects locally, was able to run it to the end.
Yeah, I will say that I also had problems at the beginning with this and that we're trying to make this whole process better. So if you have feedback, if you have specific issues, like please reach out to us like on our like GitHub discussions forum and like let us know because we want to make this easier for everyone. Okay, so assuming you have all that ready, so I know I do on my machine, the next step is to install the ZK Inception CLI. And you can do this with Cargo. There's a command right here. And you can run this in your root like folder in your computer to install this globally. So I'm going to open up my terminal. I use Warp Terminal, which I really like. So let's see, let's make this a bit smaller. We can run the terminal right next to it. So I already have actually this installed and I can just show you like what version I'm running. So ZK Inception -- version. So this is ZK Inception version 0.1.0. So yeah, and then you can find like a full reference for what the CLI does in the ZKsync Era repo. You can also type in like ZK Inception help, and it will give you some commands and instructions for how to use it. And yeah, so that should be pretty easy to install. The next step is actually setting up the Elastic Chain ecosystem. Okay, so we're done with our installations and stuff. We're ready to actually get started. So the Elastic Chain ecosystem is, in short, a system to manage multiple ZK chains. And the vision for the Elastic Chain is an ever-expanding network of ZK rollups secured by math and natively interoperable under a uniform, intuitive UX. New chains can be registered to the ecosystem to scale applications and communities as needed, making it elastic. So this term Elastic Chain, it basically means like the sort of like ecosystem of multiple ZK chains. And there's a bunch of different like ways they can sort of plug and play with each other, which you can read more about in the ZK Stack docs. But that's in really briefly what it is. Yeah, so when you're actually setting this up locally, there's two components needed. You actually have to set up the ecosystem, which is essentially like a bunch of contracts on Ethereum. And then you have at least one chain deployed within the ecosystem. And we can set up both of these things using the ZK Inception CLI. So the first step is to run this ecosystem create command. And to get this all working, you have to have Docker daemon running in the background. So I have Docker desktop. I'm going to open it up and just need to open it up so it's like running in the background, and then everything else will work. So if you forget to do this, then this command will fail. So I'm just going to minimize that, but it's still running, and we'll take a look at it later. Let's see, icons didn't load. There we go. Okay, so ZK Inception ecosystem create. So I'm going to go to my projects folder. You can, create this wherever you want. I'll probably, let's see, I'll make another folder like tutorial testing demo and go into that. So this command is going to create a new folder for the ecosystem, and that's where all the configuration files for the ecosystem and all the chains will live. So you can put this wherever you want. So I just, to make it easy, put it in this demo folder. I'm just going to paste that command, ZK Inception ecosystem create.
So maybe while this command is running, before you move forward, I just wanted to note that maybe like the reason why you created now a folder is that we are not going to do just ZK Inception and everything will work fine. Because since the tutorial is to build a custom ZK chain, there are a lot of moving parts. So it's between you build the ecosystem, and then you build a chain, and then you go do another project so that you can, connect the dots between. So that's why it's recommended to kind of create your own mini world of the ZK chains development locally. So yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. So we're going to create the ERC20 base token contract. So we're going to have to create a new folder for that project. And so it's just kind of easier to have it all in one folder. Okay. So this command gives you basically a bunch of prompts, and I have the answers to all the prompts here. I recommend that you just do exactly what's in here. But you can change it around if you want, or a few things, basically the names or something like that. Or if you already have ZKsync Era repository that's up to date, cloned, you can select that. I'll go through this real quick. So the first question is, what do you want to name the ecosystem? And I'm going to name it My Elastic Chain. And then the next question is the origin of the ZKsync Era repository. So I'm just going to select clone a new one for me, which is recommended. The next question is select the L1 network. So this is where the ecosystem contracts are going to live, and we're going to run that locally too. So essentially that's a local Ethereum node that we're going to use for our ecosystem home. And then what do you want to name the chain? Oh, sure. Yeah.
Jonathan is asking if we can make the terminal a bit
a
zoom
bit
in
bigger. That's a
Yeah.
good question. Yeah, good point.
a little more. I think now it's great.
Okay, cool.
I know it can be weird for
Thank you.
but
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. I want you guys to be able to see. Okay, so going through these prompts again, yeah. What do you want to name it? Select the origin, L1 network. And the next is, what do you want to name the chain? So like I said earlier, there's two components to running this. There's like the ecosystem and then at least one chain. So this process will create a chain for you, but we can create more chains later. So this is just sort of like a default chain. We can just see like how it works out of the box. So I'm going to call this ZK chain 1. The chain ID just suggests like an open 1271. And then how do you want to create the wallet? So these options are a little bit confusing. There's like localhost, random, empty, and infile. What this is doing is in the ecosystem folder, there will be like a wallets config file where it has like the addresses and private keys for different like wallets you need to manage the ecosystem and your chains. And we can select this localhost configuration. And what this does is it uses like a well-known seed phrase to generate all of those wallets for us. So this is just used for testing. You wouldn't want to actually use this in production. What random is chooses a random one, like all random wallets, a random seed phrase. Empty is just, it creates that config file for you and leaves all the addresses and private keys empty so you can populate them. And then infile is just, I think you can configure like a path for like if you have an existing wallet configuration file, which we'll see what that looks like later. But for now, we're going to choose localhost, and it's just kind of like default wallets and private keys that we don't mind exposing right now. Prover mode. So this is a ZK chain, right? There's a prover. But for running it locally, just for like ease of testing and like not having such a big load on your system, we can choose no proofs. I'm going to do that. Data generator mode, commit data generator mode. So this is basically your like data availability. And so we're going to go with roll up, but it's interesting to note like there is an option for validiums, which is super cool. I feel like that deserves its whole like own tutorial about like what you can do with that. We're just going to go with standard like roll up option right now. And then the base token to use, we're just going to use ETH. So this is going to be like our default chain that doesn't have any customization yet. And then do you want to start the containers? Yes. So this will start the Docker containers for us. Okay. So that was kind of a lot. And this process might take like a minute or two. But basically below this in the tutorial, it just sort of goes over like what each of those steps are. So what happens here is we made this new Elastic Chain folder. It clones the ZKsync Era repository inside it. We configure a local network to act as the L1. So this means we're going to run a local ETH node. But don't worry, this sort of, we take care of this for you like in the CLI out of the box. So basically, I think at the next command that will start, or let's see. No, we got it running now. Okay. So this command just finished, creates a new ecosystem. And what that does is, in Docker desktop right now, I can see like there's these two containers. This first one is our local Ethereum node, and it's running on port 8545. And then we also have this Postgres database that's going to be used for, I think, the chain. And it is just, ready to go. All right, so
confirming that my Elastic chain also was created, the ecosystem.
Nice.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you think of all of these steps, that it was the base default options that you would select, but then in the background, like so many things are happening in your local computer. Like one of the things is this like repo ZKsync Era, the main repo, which like for ZKsync Era protocol, this was maybe one of the main repos points, but now you can actually get that whole system and run multiple times if you need it, right? And tweak it all along the way. I guess this is what's the power of abstraction in a way, but it is fun to see it finally happening with this tooling that we have today.
Right? Yeah, it's like this one command and it like does so much for you. Like it's describing all these steps. It seems like, oh man, that's a lot of work, but like the CLI is so good. Shout out to the engineering team. Okay, so yeah, back to like what is all happening here. So it created like this like L1 network, a new chain called ZK chain 1. That's our default chain, and it's set to chain ID is 271. It chooses like this default wallet configuration. We selected to not use proofs, and basically, yeah, just configured everything, started the containers. And then we can actually, there's this command below here to cd into that folder. And it's just going to be whatever you named it. And we can take a look at just like what that looks like. So let me see if I can make this bigger. Yeah, so there's a ton of files here. This is the ecosystem folder. And there's like a chains folder, configs, volumes, and it sort of like describes them in the tutorial here. So like there's this zkstack.yaml file. And this is just like a general configuration file for the ecosystem. There's a Docker compose file, just like, you know, getting everything set up. The ZKsync Era repo that we cloned, volumes, which are just like our dependencies here for the containers. And then we have configs. And it's interesting to note, we have like another command to run to like initialize the whole ecosystem. And after we run that, this will look a little bit different. There will be actually more information here. So just creating it, it creates these like, this is the wallet configuration file I was talking about. So this is like generative. So at least for me, like this address is like the same every time I run this tutorial. So it should be the same for you. We have this like initial deployment. So these are like ERC20 tokens that were deployed to the chain, the default chain that we made. And so this configs folder is like configuration files for the whole ecosystem. And then we have our chains here. And each new chain we make will get a different, our new folder and inside this chains folder. So ZK chain 1 is our default chain we just made, and there's this zkstack.yaml file for the chain. And it has like, yeah, it's your general configuration file for this chain. And it also has its own configs. So right now it's just this wallet's config file.
I think basically all of those default options that were there to kind of go and click when we ran the ZK chain ecosystem create, this is what basically it created, right?
Exactly.
The structure of the folders inside your Elastic like chain, and you can kind of go there and touch in between. But later on, we will see how we can, you know, click different parts and see what they can do.
Yes, 100%. And yeah, so these are basically just setting what up like the data that's going to be in this folder. Okay, so moving on, we have that set up. Let's actually deploy like the ecosystem, so like initialize it. So we have this command ecosystem init dev, and this dev flag basically chooses all the default options for development. So if you leave it out, you can still like choose, like there's prompts and stuff for you, but we're just going to go with these default options. And we're running this inside the Elastic Chain folder, which is our ecosystem folder we just made. Okay, so I think this is probably the longest command we have to run. It's doing a lot here. And you can also add this like verbose flag to the command to see like actually like all the little details of everything it's doing. But sort of, yeah, to summarize, it checks to see if your environment has necessary dependencies. It compiles and deploys all of the necessary contracts for the ecosystem. It will deploy the ZK chain 1 to the ecosystem. It will set up the database for the default chain, and then deploy paymaster contract and some ERC20 test contracts to use for development. And that's something that kind of confused me at first. I was like, what is this for? So the idea is basically like if you wanted to do development on ZK Chain 1 and just test things out easily, you can just bridge ETH from your L1 to this paymaster contract. And then you can use these like ERC20 tokens to pay for the like gas fees through the paymaster. And so basically you only have to bridge ETH once to this, and then you have these like ERC20 contracts. That's my understanding, at least, yeah, how to use it. So it's really just for development. You don't have to worry too much about this if you don't want to use it. So yeah, so this is still running, initializing the ecosystem, downloading.
Might as well.
Yeah, installing and building dependencies. All right. Now it's
we had a comment before you continue. We had a comment if people can build their building the Elastic Chain with 0 coding skills. And sorry to break it to you, but this is such a big system in place. But I immediately thought of the Cypher and Updraft platform, where we have all of the like Patrick Collins and team from Cypher, and all of their courses do support ZKsync. And I'm seeing a lot of success stories of developers going from like 0 coding skills in like 6 or 1 year or 1.5 years, a year and a half, from like 0 coding skills to actually being able to develop smart contracts and stuff like that. So I just shared the link of the Updraft courses over there. And if today's live stream inspired you to actually even just start checking around, I think that's a great starting point, Samo. Great.
100%. I second that. Yeah, those courses are so good. And yeah, I'd say there's not too much actual coding in this tutorial. Like we are going to deploy like a template smart contract to our chain once it's set up, and then deploy our ERC20 token, which is sort of like a template contract too. So yeah, I'd say without coding experience, you might be able to go through this, but what's tricky is if you aren't familiar with like installing a bunch of dependencies and making sure all that's the right version, I'd say like that's probably the part where you might get stuck as a beginner. Yeah, there's actually not too much coding. But I would say probably to understand fully what's going on, you do want some coding experience actually to like.
I think what I really love in our industry is that people, or users in this case, have a very good understanding of the technical layers of our systems in a way. So all of those moving parts, such as the data availability tool or the custom configurations for specific parts, in a way, they kind of know all of the options in the like ecosystem in general and stuff like that. So if you would continue just to be that person who actually research everything in the ecosystem, but then gets to join those streaming like events or join hackathons, you might find very good technical people who can help you build your own product. So I think we are very much pushing everyone to really dream big when it comes to building their own product on ZKsync, and it's actually the tooling is getting so much better, and yeah, it took so many years to even arrive at this point. So why not leverage from all of the developer experience that we currently have, and yeah, continue researching in a way, even if you don't know coding.
100%, yeah. I didn't list this as a prerequisite, but I would say like general like blockchain knowledge of like understanding how blockchains work and like general architectures and stuff. What is a data availability, stuff like that. It's important to know to go through this for sure. But yay, our command finished. That took a long time, but it worked. Yay. So yeah, we have everything set up now. And so let's take a look again at the Elastic Chain folder. Okay, so now you can see, like if I go to this configs, we have a couple more config files here. It has like all the deployed contracts, and same for our chain. We have this like external node config, Genesis config. Yeah, way more information here. Okay. So, and yeah, you can find, let me go back real quick. In the tutorial, what does it say? You can find the paymaster contract code in the ZKsync Era repo right here. And then the deployed address inside this like my Elastic chain zkchain1 configs contracts.yaml. So it's this one, and it shows you like right here, here's the testnet paymaster address that we talked about, if you wanted to use that. Okay. And there's a bit more detail here about like understanding what all these files are. I won't go through everything right now. But basically, they're just a bunch of configuration files for your chain. All right, last thing to get this all running is to run a server. And that's basically just like a local node for the ZKchain1. And this looks like, probably you've seen it before if you ever run a node locally. It's just like this live process that's running on port 3050. So yeah, now we have our L1 running 8545. We have our ZKchain1 running at port 3050. And now we can deploy a contract to this chain. Cool. So I'm going to open up a new terminal. And
I am behind with commands. I'm still running, building up the init, which is okay because I have space to, you know, do all of the other things in the background.
Yeah, okay. I won't go too fast then. You'll catch up. Okay, so I'm going to go back outside of the Elastic Chain folder, back into my demo folder. And this is what I mentioned earlier. We're going to make a new project. Before we do that, actually, we're going to fund our wallet. So right now, like if we check the balance of pretty much any address on RL2, it should be 0. But we can bridge ETH from RL1. And because we're running this local Wreath node, we have these like rich wallets that are pre-funded. They have a bunch of ETH already, and we know their private keys. So we can just tap into those to do our testing. So I'm going to use the ZKsync CLI to bridge some ETH over. So this is the command right here. And if you don't have the CLI installed globally, you can run it with like npx. So I'm going to do that. So npx ZKsync CLI bridge deposit. And then we have the RPC URL for our ZKchain1 and for the L1. And I'm going to just go with 10. Private key. And so this is the private key of one of those rich wallets. So don't freak out and be like, oh no, you exposed the private key. This is in our docs too. It's like well-known private key. And it has, funds. There we go. And then for the recipient, it should just, like by default, recommend what the address that private key resolves to for you. But if it doesn't, you can find it right here. Okay, so we just bridged 10 ETH. So now let's just check. Let's just verify that it worked. So we can use the ZKsync CLI again to check the wallet balance. And this is the address that we just bridged to. And then our ZK chain 1 RPC node. All right, so we have 10. It worked. Cool. So we have an address that has funds on our ZK chain 1 now, our own ZK chain. And next, we're going to deploy a contract from it just to see how that looks.
Just heads up, my init command kind of froze my screen where I'm live streaming, so I just I just stopped it, and I'm gonna watch you running it locally. But yes, I feel like it's happening, it's running. But we did have a comment on the container. Can we now see the container is running on the Explorer as well? I think in this part, Sarah is more on the containers of Docker Hub, where all of the database is running and the Elastic Chain environment and the config stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's actually not in this tutorial, so we're not going to go through it. But in the ZK stack docs, I think there is something about how to run like a local block explorer for that. So you can do that. Okay, cool. So we're out of the ecosystem folder. We're going to make a new template project. And this is just like a random, like this is our quick start template. That has just like a random contract, and we're just going to deploy that from this address that we just funded just to see if it works. So private keys, the same one we've been using. I'm going to use Yarn, but you can use whatever package manager you want. And this is just making like a template hard hat project with like simple crowdfunding smart contract that we won't make any edits to or anything. We're just going to deploy it. So, all right, that's set up now. And let's move into this folder. Oops. Oh, we already moved into it. I'm sorry. All right, so we're in our project folder. Let's open it up in VS Code and make just one quick edit. So this template already has like basically everything configured you need to deploy like on any ZKsync network, basically. So it already has this like Dockerized node network config here that has the correct ports we're using. So all we need to do is change the default network here on line 6 from ZKsync to Sepolia testnet to the Dockerized node. And all right, now we can just compile and deploy and see if that works.
Imagine it not working on this stuff.
Yeah, it works though. Yeah,
I think your setup is magically like working all the time.
Tuned in my dependencies. Yeah.
Yes.
100%, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it worked. Everything works. So yeah. So that's the whole first section. Basically, we just made a whole Elastic Chain ecosystem. We made a brand new ZK chain, and we deployed a smart contract to our own ZK chain. Like, so if you just got through that at home, like amazing.
Well, we can ask the audience because I can see there's a lot of people watching us on Twitter, and there's a lot of people also watching us on YouTube. Is anyone running it locally, or are you just following along? just write a comment on those posts, because I can see it also on Twitter. We have like 300 people. So thank you everyone who joined us on this Friday. I guess I can imagine it, people leaving us on the background as a background noise, but we still appreciate it, right?
For sure.
But yes, if
yeah.
you're running it at the same time, let us know, and yeah, share your thoughts.
Yeah, and run it whenever you guys want. Like, this tutorial is up for you guys to run this async. I'm sure this video will be up, so it's cool if you're working and listening to this in the background. Okay, so now let's get to the, I think, also really cool part. So basically, we saw earlier, like, we can customize our chain with the custom ERC20 base token. So we're going to go through the steps for how to do that. And yeah, so there's a bit more steps to it, but it's still not, crazy complicated, I would say. And there's just this little note at the top saying, like, with the initial release of the ZK stack, there's actually like an allow list inside one of the, I think, the Bridge Hub contract for the ecosystem. And what that means is that, like, if you wanted to actually launch this like custom ZK chain on mainnet that has a custom ERC20 base token today, it's not a completely permissionless process. I'm not exactly sure what that process looks like, to be honest. But like, this is sort of the vision that, like, one day anyone will be able to do that with any, like, just spin up a new chain or new token, new chain, like, launch it like right away, completely permissionless. But what we can do is try this all out locally, because we're essentially like the administrators of the ecosystem, like in our local setup. So the overall flow for setting up a local chain with the custom base token is we create a custom ERC20 token and deploy it on our L1. And this is something that's also like just current limitation that we're planning on expanding. I think that, like, eventually you'll be able to deploy the token on the L2 itself. But for now, you have to deploy it on L1 and bridge those tokens over at some point. So we deploy the token, then we create a new chain, and like in the config, we use this token address to set as the base. And we set our whole chain, our new chain, as the default one. We send ERC20 tokens to the ecosystem and chain governor addresses on the L1. So these are just two addresses that need to be funded for this whole process to work. That out of the box, they have ETH, but they don't have our custom token that they need. And then we can initialize the chain, and then actually bridge those tokens over and start using them as a base token. So that's pretty cool, honestly. It's like, think of, like, you create your own token for your app, but then you can also create your whole own chain that uses that token, like for the fees and stuff. Like, it's pretty cool, honestly. Yeah. So actually, how does this work?
Before you move to that point, we have a question saying if the ZK inception tooling is suitable to run on production. And I was just going to say that, well, it should be, because it runs all of the moving parts together, but also we are working on a more production line, like guides and like documentation for it, for the deployment perspective on mainnet, right? So for that, like, it's still a work in progress side.
Yeah, good point. I think that is the vision for the CLI, that it can be used in production and development. Yeah, I'm not fully clued into that, but I'm pretty sure, yes, at least for some parts of it. Okay, so first step, deploying an ERC20 token to the L1. So we're going to make a new hard hat project, and we're going to make a new folder for this project. So I'm going to move out of this ZK chain test folder, make a new folder called base token contract, and move into that, and then run npx hard hat init. And of course, if you're like a Foundry person and you want to, deploy this with Foundry, then, and you know how to do that, like that's totally fine. You can do that. I'm going to select a TypeScript project, and then basically the default options for everything else. It will install Hardhat and the Hardhat toolbox for me. And then once that's set up, there's a few more dependencies I'm going to install, which is like TypeScript, JS Node, Open Zeppelin contracts, Hardhat ethers, or like type chain ethers, and .env.
And for this part, make sure you're running Node version 18 at least and up.
Yeah, I think 20 is the recommended version for everything to work. So I would do that for sure. And so actually, I think I'm like, did I miss this step or it's just a bit later? Probably. Okay, I think it's in a bit. Never mind.
Which step?
Okay, so I was going to say we still have our node running for our first chain, right? Which is okay. Right now, we're just going to deploy a ERC20 base contract or ERC20, base token contract. But just know, okay, there's like the step is somewhere down here. It's eventually.
Is it the alert one to stop the server before we start the custom one? Yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now because we don't need this running anymore. And it's just not shutting down. So I'm just going to close it. All right. So usually you can just like, at least on my Mac, I'll run like Control-C, just shut down that node and just prepare for like, we're going to start it up again for a new chain. Okay, so back in our base token contract folder, I just installed these dependencies, which we have right here. And then next, we're going to configure Hardhat to deploy to our local Ethereum node. So Hardhat config here and just copy and paste the whole config file. And you can see it has like our port here.
This is the port, the very important part. If you're wondering what's happening, that we are doing a totally new project, Hardhat project, running like just a normal ERC20 token, etc., etc. This is the moving part that makes a difference because this port is running, something is running on that port as well, right?
Yes, yeah. So we have our L1 running here, and then this is just like a standard, like for Ethereum, how you would deploy. So you don't have to configure any like ZKsync tooling or anything like that. So yeah, we're gonna create an environment file or env file, and then just add the same wallet private key that we've been using for everything.
You know that
ZK test. I'm gonna make this one bigger.
I was running so many examples when I was testing that at one point I thought, what if I exhausted the wallets that we have for testings, because it felt so like I ran so many projects locally that I just didn't know
a lot of ETH in these rich wallets. So let's say don't worry about it. Yeah, we're using this wallet a bunch, but it's just kind of like easy for testing, I guess. Okay, so we have our wallet private key set up here. So now it can like deploy from that wallet. And let's see, the next thing we want to do is actually like make the contract. So the default Hardhat contract is this like lock.sol file. And just you can rename this however you want, but I just have a command to like rename the file to custom base token. And then here we have the contract. So you can just like copy and paste the whole contract. And this is just like a really simple ERC20 contract. It has like a mint function, and then it has this constructor function. So once we deploy this, it should automatically mint tokens to the deployer address. All right, so to actually deploy this, we need to update the deploy script, which is this like an ignition modules in the latest hard hat here. So can just rename that file to custom base token and then copy and paste this new like deploy module to set that up. And I just named it ZK base token. So, okay, the last thing to do is just deploy it to the L1. So npx hard hat ignition deploy, and it will ask you to confirm. The default option is no, so you have to like press Y to confirm you're deploying to that network. And all right, so now we have our custom ERC20 token.
I think now is where the most important part comes in, and I will share docs for our ZKsync CLI, the best CLI in the world, just so that users can be like, yeah, can know what's happening. Until now, we have used the ZKsync, like the ZK Inception CLI. Now is the the ZKsync CLI.
Yeah, actually, for this next one, we're going to use Cast, which is the Foundry CLI. I think we might have been able to use the ZKsync CLI for this one.
Crying out loud.
In my head, I don't know, this is just weird for me. I'm like, I like to use the standard tooling when I'm working with Ethereum, and then our tooling with ZKsync. But
yes,
it probably works with everything. Yeah,
I meant it for that part. Well, the bridging part starts with our tooling. So, let me see.
Yeah, exactly. We've already used, and when we generated the template contract.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just going to check the balance of this address that we deployed with to the L1. So just need to copy the deployed token address here in this ERC20 flag. And all right, so now we can see we have a bunch of tokens at this address on L1. So our contract worked. Okay, so next we are going to create a new chain. So this is where that node is. Shut down the node server running for the ZK chain 1. So like if I
alert.
Yeah. This should fail if I say like 3050. It's just saying, yeah, I can't connect. Okay, cool. We shut it down. All right, so now we need to move back into the Elastic Chain folder. So we'll move out of this, cd my Elastic Chain, and then this is where we can use the ZK Inception CLI to make a new chain. So this chain create command. And then I also have like answers to the prompts here. So this one I'm going to name custom ZK chain. The chain ID will be 272. Use a localhost wallets, no proofs. It'll be a rollup. And this is where the answer is different. So we're going to choose custom. And then we need that token address. Don't forget it. It's also, I think it's in the deployments folder. If you end up clearing this out, it should be in like the folder where you deployed that token from. So here's the token address. And then it asks for the base token price nominator and it asks for the denominator. And we're just going to use 1 for each. And what that means is basically this token has like a 1-to-1 ratio with ETH. So if you wanted to set it up where like 20 tokens equals 1 ETH, then you would set like the nominator to 20 and the denominator to 1. And that's how the gas calculations and everything would like use that. So we're just going to use 1-to-1 right now and then set this chain as the default. All right, so we made a new chain in our Elastic Chain folder. Yeah.
This is a win because there's a lot of sessions. So this is like another milestone of all of this tutorial or all of this kind.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So if you go into the Elastic Chain folder now, you can see there's this custom ZK chain. So we have a whole new chain here. and it has like the base token address that's not ETH. So if you look at like this other one, it looks different. It just has this like one address, which means ETH. Cool. So we got that set up. The next step is to fund the governor's addresses. And this is also kind of a tricky thing, but I feel like it's pretty simple if you can see someone doing it. So there's 2 addresses we need to fund on the L1 with the ERC20 base token. And you can find those in this configs folder in the wallets governor address. So this will be the first one we fund. And we have this like command to send the tokens with that. So I'll just open up another terminal. Doesn't matter where you run this. So we need our token address. And get it from here. We're going to transfer this token to the governor address. Just go back to VS Code here and copy this from the wallets.yaml. And we're just going to send the address a bunch of tokens. Make sure it's funded. Okay, cool, that worked. And then there's one more governor address we need to send this to. So I'm just going to click up to get that previous command and then go back to the ecosystem folder. And instead of the configs wallets.yaml, we're going to go to chains, custom ZK chain configs wallets.yaml. And this is the chain governor address.
This was one of the kind of missing bits for me because I was going, since there are so many projects being built while you go through it, I was getting the governor address of the main ZK chain 1 when it was created with the Elastic chain in the beginning. And then, I was wondering what's happening. So the best setup was open the whole folder of this tutorial on terminal, or on the Visual Code editor, and just do everything in one place and not like opening a couple of editors.
That's a good point. Yeah, the other chain also has a governor address, but that's not the one we care about funding. Okay, so now just to check real quick if it worked, we can just check the balance here. It's this is our token address. And then just one of the governor addresses. So I think this is the first one. And cool, it's funded. And just to be safe, I'll check the other one too, which is this address. All right, nice. Now finally we can initialize this chain. We're so close, by the way, we're getting there. And run this inside the Elastic Chain folder. And just select the default options for everything. So we'll deploy a paymaster, and it has all the URLs and names for us sort of already. Don't have to worry about that unless you want to customize it. And all right, it worked. Last step is to start a new server.
Making sure we have stopped the first server of the Elastic Chain ZK Chain 1.
Yes.
Now this is a totally new one.
I imagine at some point you'll be able to run multiple chains all at once. I think for now, though, you can just do one at a time. So yeah, there we go. There's our node for our chain. And you might see these little errors here that's saying that it's not able to find a price for a token. So it's using this default ratio 1-to-1, and that's totally fine. Okay, so we have our custom chain up and running. Let's actually bridge tokens, our ERC20 tokens to it, and sort of see what that looks like. So again, you can do this in any folder. But I'm just going to use the ZKsync CLI bridge deposit command here. And we have our node running. And so here's our ERC20 address. That's the token we're going to deposit. And we have like our RPC URLs pointed at our local ones. So I'm just going to deposit 5. Use the same private key we've been using the whole time that we know is like deployed this contract and has a bunch of tokens, and just receive it on the same address. And we're depositing.
Yeah, this part was the one that I set for the ZKsync CLI, which I love.
Yeah,
because it's so easy to use for all of the commands.
Exactly. It makes me think of how, like I was saying, there's not a ton of coding in this. And that's really because the CLI makes all the CLIs really like make it so easy to like do these kinds of actions without really needing to code it, which, you know, like you might choose to otherwise. Cool. So that worked. And if you'll notice something interesting here, it says 5 ETH, but we actually sent this token. So like, why is that? Basically because this token is now, this ERC20 token, when you bridge it to your custom chain, it resolves to the same like token address that's used for ETH on ZKsync Era. So like using the CLI, I think isn't configured to like have, I don't know, to like recognize all of that yet. So it just sees this as ETH because it has the same like address. So essentially this token magically becomes like ETH, or like how ETH is used basically on your chain. But then you might be wondering, okay, but what if I bridge actual ETH? What happens then? Like, does it double count it? Like, does it get added to this? And the answer to that is no. Actually, there's a brand new token address that actual ETH will resolve to on your chain. And it's, I think, different for each chain. So we have our chain running. We bridged our token, our custom token to it. So like we have like funds to deploy or do whatever we want. We could deploy the contract again. But just sort of to see like, what does it look like when you bridge actual ETH? We can just try that out. I think it's kind of cool to see. So I'm going to run the same like bridge command here, but without this token argument. So it should just try to bridge actual ETH. I'm going to choose 20s, just have it a different amount so I can see that they're different. And same private key, which also has ETH. And it's depositing. And now what we can do is basically like, actually we can sort of see it right here. So you can see when I sent this 5 ETH, which is really our ERC20 token, we have this like leftover balance. And then when I send it here, 20, there's a different balance, right? And I think like if you actually ran like the balance for these, which I think you can do here. Yeah, so if we check the balance for this, it's going to say 5 ETH because we're not saying any token here. So this is the original like 5 ERC20 tokens that we bridged. And it's now saying like, okay, here's our 5 ETH, which is our token. But the actual ETH we bridged, we have to now add the like a token, you know, ERC20 argument here to look at that specific token. So if we want to see where is the 20, where can we see that balance? You can do it with this. I'm sure we'll have it in the CLI soon enough, but right now we actually have to like run this script, and we have this like L2 token address method, and you just pass in this like ETH address in contracts constant from our ZKsync Ethers package, and it will return the address for you. And then when we check that balance of this L2 ETH address, we should be able to see this 20. So let's do that real quick. And let's go to the ZK chain test folder, which we already have set up with ZKsync Ethers, and it'll just be easy to run. So move out of the Elastic Chain folder, move into ZK chain test, and open this up in VS Code. Okay, and then let's see, I'm also going to run this command here to just make a new scripts folder and create a new file called check balance. I'm going to copy the script from here, and in this blank file right here, just paste it. And so yeah, it's just looking up what is the token address for ETH on our chain, and then what is this balance here for that. So let's see. Here's the command npx hardhat run scripts check balance. And there we go. Amazing. There's our 20 ETH. This is the L2 ETH address. And that's how it works. We just did it. We just made our own custom ZK chain.
We just, with like 10 commands, but yes. It's actually a big thing. But it feels like we just, because following a simple guide, that'll take maybe a few minutes, like 30, 20, whatever. But yes, you did it.
Yeah, no, I'd say if I'm just like copying, pasting all the commands from this tutorial, it's pretty fast to go through.
Yes.
There are a lot of commands, you're right. There are several steps here, but yeah, actually talking it all out, it's a little bit longer.
Yes, you should drink some water. The thing is that we are creating not just a custom ZK chain, right? It was an ecosystem with another chain, and then it was another project to create the base token and another chain, and then connecting those together. So it's a lot of moving parts. It definitely deserves its place for each of these parts to have their own guide and tutorial, which I think is a great idea, so that people can actually really learn how everything is moving around. But yes, definitely as the first guide or tutorial on Elastic Chain, building a custom ZK chain, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's so cool for me to see just like all this in action, where I've just been hearing about the Elastic Chain. It seems super cool, and then just be able to see it and like see like a folder of like, okay, there's a ecosystem and there's like chains inside it. Like, it's, as a developer, I feel like it's a lot easier to sort of like grasp like what is this concept or whatever. And yeah, like obviously more features will be to come, but like just sort of like base level first release of like, what is this? I think is super helpful for me to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a little more to this tutorial, and it's basically just like if you want to shut down the ecosystem, how to get it back and running again. So I don't think I need to go over this, but because it's basically the same steps, like just sort of if you shut down your Docker containers, you can do with Docker Compose down. If you want to restart everything again, sort of these are the steps you'd have to go through, assuming that you didn't like delete the folders you just made. So you'd already have like your contract, ERC20 contract ready to deploy. And so basically all you would need to do is like redeploy that to the L1, update the base token contract address in the config files. So there's like 2 locations for that. Refund the governor addresses for the ecosystem and the chain with your new token, assuming like you have a new address for the token. And then you can like initialize the whole ecosystem again, and because it will be your default chain still, it should set all of that up.
Yeah, in a nutshell, this is like doing it all over again, but just to see and how you can navigate between the different chains. I really loved that I could go with which command I could go and like select which chain I want to run. All of the other commands.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
part. Yeah, I didn't go through this. So it just says ecosystem change default chain. And so I'll just shut down the server. There we go. And you can run this to see what that looks like. Oh, I'm not in the right folder. You have to be in the Elastic Chain folder in your ecosystem folder. Yeah. Ooh. So, and it will, yeah, basically just gives you a prompt. I think you can also pass in an argument to do this, but it'll just show you all your chains and you can change which one is the default. So I'll just keep this on as the default.
And this is why when we shut down, is this the reason when we shut down the first chain, that whenever we created the second chain and we continued to run the other commands for the ZK chain, it was keeping up with the second chain that was created. And we didn't have to do anything like, oh, switch from this chain to this other chain, because the ecosystem create command and the init thing were already doing it by default in a way.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, so when we created, was it the second chain we made? I think one of the questions somewhere, set this chain as the default. So if you said no, if you said no here and then restarted the server, it would start up the first chain we made, and then you'd have like some issue or something. It wouldn't be working. So yeah, exactly. There's like a default chain that it sets up whenever you initialize the ecosystem, but also it affects the when you run a server, and I'm sure other things too. Yeah.
Let's do a round of applause for Sarah. This is weird. I would love to have these spaces, like the Discord thing, that everyone can go on stage and talk, whatever. But yes, this is efficient because we are running in both YouTube and Twitter. But yes, this is great. I wish I could just go through the commands at the same time with you here, because it's so more like, it's exciting. But we will fix it next time when we run these live streams, so that I can have another device that I can kind of do the same things and be more interactive. How do you feel, Sarah? Are you tired, first things first, by going through everything and like talking out loud for each step?
No, this has been super fun. Yeah, I feel like it's funny because we have actually never gone through all of this together. I was thinking about that. We've been talking about it a lot, and you've gone through it on your own, and I've gone through it on my own, but we've never gone through this together. So it was actually kind of cool. I've been wanting to do this. So,
and the best part of it is that every time I would get stuck in a step, that was so weird for you, because at your side it was working and at my side it was not. Then at one point you were like, hey, let's run it together. So like, let's go on a call. But every time you would say this, then after a few minutes it will run, and everything would work fine, which was interesting. But definitely this is fun. And I am very excited, because the next ones that we can kind of do, or like if anyone from the audience would suggest any topics for us to do for next time or next live stream, it would be great. But for next time I would really like, this is more of like setting the base, like developer setup for you to run everything when it comes to ZKsync Era network or the Elastic Chain. But when we go deeper into different use cases that we actually can code and stuff like that, it might be more fun and more like interactive as well with the audience.
100%. I'm excited. I'll definitely be back here with a new tutorial at some point. So
yeah. Now we are not stopping here because it's fun. And I think Friday is also a good day. But let's see, because everyone is like more shutting down from the week and starting the weekend, and this is not like the purpose of these live streams is not to for you to sit down and like focus completely like 100%, but to actually see, oh, what does it take for you to go through, let's say, a ZK chain to create it locally? How easy it is to use a tooling that will help you to navigate in the ZKsync Era network when it comes to the developer perspective, right? So these live streams would be only focused on developer side of things, and maybe we'll have different formats, not just like coding, but actually going through a dApp in our ecosystem on a technical perspective, and just see how they have been developing things and what kind of architecture is there, and what are the efficient decisions that they did to make it like, yeah, better. And because we do have different applications on ZKsync that they have added their own custom things on top of whatever we are providing. So that's fun as well. And I can see more people join now, which is by the end, but we hit the mark an hour of 20 minutes of a live stream, which I didn't thought we would like make it, but so exciting. Oh, Sarah, I can't hear you.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. I was just going to say, yeah, I'm super excited for the upcoming live streams we're going to do too, because yeah, there's so much cool stuff I think that's in the ecosystem that we are going to show off. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, and as a call to action, because we don't want to kind of have those 500 people, my camera is not focusing on me, and not be, let's say, not, we want you to go away with a lesson learned or like something that you can actually try it yourself. So go through the custom, building a custom ZK chain tutorial. I'll share the link again here. And if you're lazy to go through all of this setup in place, you can just go and try things out on the start coding, which is 5-minute top per mini guide on ZKsync Era. Because I can imagine we do have people who are interested. If we have people who are interested for this type of content, those people do need to go and like maybe test things out. So our new docs website and content is amazing. You have 2 paths of quick start and 101, and you can learn more about paymasters and account abstraction, which are the top features of ZKsync Era. And you can run it on different IDEs such as Atlas and Remix as well. So yes, those 2 links can actually kind of set you up for a good quick start on ZKsync Era. And if you do have questions, we have our ZKsync GitHub area where you can ask questions. And even if you have another app, or an app that you have built on ZKsync, you can share it on Show and Tell, and we can collaborate to give you more exposure. But yes, let me see what's happening on Twitter, just in case if you have any questions or something.
Okay, yeah. Also, let us know if you like Friday as a streaming day. If this is like, oh yes, like, you know, I need something to watch right now. Or you're like, this would have been perfect on Monday.
Yeah, definitely myself. If I get to as a consumer of content in different social apps, my Monday to Wednesday is not that active. I'm very focused on my own world, what I need to create, what I need to produce and everything. And then slowly from Wednesday, I'm like, I feel the FOMO, what's happening on crypto Twitter, what's happening on other socials, and I go back. At least that's my perspective. If not, let us know if you have any other day that you're like interested to see us there, and we for sure can do A/B testing and get a live stream on another day of the week and see how that goes. But yeah, I guess. Thank you, Sarah, again. You killed it with the custom building a ZK chain tutorial. You will go to Argentina next week, right?
Yes, I'll be at Aleph. I'll be there for the hackathon. If you're there, I'm going to do a quick workshop on like account abstraction on ZKsync Era. So yeah, come say hi. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll be super fun. Thanks for setting this up.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I like the way you both explained and can't wait for the next live stream. See you next week, Alexander, and thanks a lot. I've just started my journey. You inspired me so much, Lera. Okay, well, this is amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. I did share it in some of my socials, so if you're coming from there, you know who you are. Thanks a lot. I'm trying to focus my camera on my face. But yeah, see you next week, Friday, I think at the same time. We are still deciding on the theme topic and the guest because Sarah will be in Argentina next week. So stay tuned for that. And also stay tuned for information about Aleph, the pop-up city, the hackathon, the ZK activities that are happening in Argentina. And if you are there, if you are based there, good luck. Porter, Sarah, and I think a couple of other team members will be there. But yes, we'll share more details on ZKsync Devs and ZKsync main account. To follow us there, join our community on Discord. And if you're going through the tutorials, ask questions if you have them on Discord or on GitHub discussions where you will find us, or even send me a DM on Twitter. You're more than welcome. And yeah, as Alim just wrapped up ZKGN for everyone, have a happy weekend, and yeah, enjoy it.
ZKGN. Bye.